I've never seen anybody with handles like this.
It's not too many guys that I played against when we switch a pick and roll and I want to guard.
How you see that? Because I'm like, you know how many things you got to look at to see if I'm going to be driving this one or if I'm going to be shooting this one?
There is a moment in NBA history that nobody, not the referees, not the coaches, not the commentators, could explain. Oakland Arena, February 13, 2000. A defender closes in. The play looks routine, except this time, the pass doesn't come from his hand. It comes from his elbow. The crowd was silent for exactly 1 second. Then, the place erupted. And in that 1 second of silence, basketball changed.
When you talk about some of the flashiest players of all time, Jason Williams is very high on that list. He wasn't just a point guard, he was a showman, a basketball magician who played the game like it was his mixtape. Every time he touched the ball, you knew something crazy was about to happen.
That moment wasn't even the real story. What if the elbow pass was just the most visible symptom of something much deeper? A seismic shift happening underneath the surface of professional basketball that most people completely missed. Today, we're going beyond the elbow pass. To understand the elbow pass, you first have to understand the man. Jason Williams grew up in Bell, West Virginia. He didn't learn basketball in a famous city. He didn't come from a basketball hotbed. He came from a small town, and he learned the game on outdoor courts where nobody was watching, nobody was scouting, and the only rule was, make something happen. By the time he reached Marshall University, coaches were already uncomfortable, too unpredictable, too willing to try something with a 30% chance of working. He transferred to the University of Florida, where his talent eventually became impossible to ignore. In 1998, the Sacramento Kings drafted him 7th overall.
I remember when you came to the Heat. I was excited.
Boy, it was. He came to the crib like, you know, saying like, asked me, do I want to play with Miami? I always want to play with Miami, you know, or Orlando. I always try to get to one of them, right? But Miami for sure. And he asked did I want to play with him for sure.
His nickname, White Chocolate, didn't come from the streets or the blacktop. It came from Stephanie Shepard, a media relations assistant with the Kings, who watched him play one day and couldn't find any other way to describe it. I came up with that name because of his style, Shepard said. He has flash and pizzazz. The way he does things with the ball is incredible to me. It reminds me of schoolyard streetball. She added, with the exception of some footage I've seen of Pistol Pete Maravich, I've never seen any white kid play like Jason. The Kings organization tried to contain the nickname. They couldn't. By the end of his rookie season, Williams' number 55 jersey was one of the top 5 sellers in the entire NBA, and the Kings saw a 13% increase in attendance that led the whole league. He wasn't just playing basketball, he was selling something the sport had never seen. To understand why the elbow pass was so revolutionary, you have to understand what passing looked like before it. Even the great passers of that era, Magic Johnson, John Stockton, Larry Bird, were working within a framework. A beautiful framework. But one with a single unspoken rule: the ball comes from the hands. Always. Defenders are trained to read 3 things: your eyes, your shoulders, and your hands. Those 3 cues predict where a pass is going in almost every situation that has ever existed in organized basketball. Now here is what Williams did in Oakland. He pushes up the floor. 4-on-2 break. He moves right, faking a pass to the right side. Every defensive instinct in every body says, ball goes right. Instead, he wraps the ball behind his back and bounces it off his elbow joint like a billiard shot. Precise, fast, and physically impossible to read from the angles that defenders use. The ball rockets left to Rafe LaFrentz. LaFrentz was fouled before he could finish, so there was no assist, no bucket on the stat sheet. And yet, the crowd stood up. The elbow is none of the 3 things defenders track. Williams had discovered a 4th dimension of passing, one that human defensive training had never accounted for in any playbook ever written. After that night, young guards watching at home started asking questions they'd never thought to ask. If that was possible, what else hasn't been tried yet? What other rules are actually just habits? The elbow pass gave the next generation of playmakers permission. Permission to experiment. Permission to try something that had no name yet. And Williams himself, when asked about it, gave the most Jason Williams answer possible. I did it, he said, so you all wouldn't ask me to ever do it again. In 1998, the same year Jason Williams was drafted, a videotape started circulating in gyms, barbershops, and courts across America. The AND1 Mixtape, Volume 1. 30 minutes of untamed creativity filmed on blacktop courts. Players like Hot Sauce and Skip 2 Lou doing things that looked physically impossible. The NBA establishment dismissed it. That's entertainment. That's not basketball. They were wrong. Allen Iverson was crossing over Michael Jordan. Tim Hardaway had spent a decade destroying defenders with the UTEP two-step, a move that coaches called illegal when it first appeared. At Rucker Park in Harlem, players were proving nightly that the NBA hadn't cornered the market on basketball genius. Williams was the bridge. He proved that creativity the league called reckless was just basketball the league hadn't caught up to yet. Streetball operates on one core principle: deception beats power. Make your defender believe something false, then destroy them with the truth. That philosophy had lived on blacktops for decades. Williams dragged it inside the world's most powerful basketball league and made it win games. Every hesitation dribble Steph Curry deploys, every behind-the-back Kyrie Irving uses in crunch time, every no-look Luka Dončić throws off a pick-and-roll. They all trace back to the generation that first proved street creativity and professional excellence were not opposites. They were the same thing, just at different speeds. Let me tell you about Pete Maravich. It is 1967. He is 19 years old at Louisiana State University, already throwing behind-the-back passes, full-court no-looks, bounce passes off the backboard to cutters. His coaches stopped practice not to correct him, but because they couldn't believe what they'd just seen. The world called it a circus. History proved it was the future. Magic Johnson brought the no-look into the NBA mainstream, calculated, precise, deployed like a chess player moving a queen. Larry Bird did it with cold-blooded efficiency, but both treated it as a special weapon, something you deployed in the right situation. Williams did something neither of them attempted. He made the no-look his default, not a special occasion, a reflex. Hidden inside ordinary-looking drives disguised as routine plays heading somewhere else entirely. Here is why it works. Defenders track the ball handler's eyes because in 90% of basketball situations, eye direction predicts pass direction. A no-look defeats that at its root. The ball handler looks left. Every defender's brain says pass goes left, and the ball goes right. By the time the brain corrects itself, the play is over. Williams didn't just execute no-looks. He weaponized the gap between what defenders saw and what was actually happening. He turned defensive certainty into a liability. Today, no-look passing is expected from elite playmakers. Scouts measure it. Programs teach it. What was once called reckless is now called basketball IQ, and that shift in language tells you everything about who is right. Rick Adelman was the head coach of the Sacramento Kings during Williams' most electrifying seasons, a fundamentals man, a chess player who built offenses on precision.
If you come down and throw a behind-the-back pass and it goes out of bounds, he said, don't worry about it. Next time, try it with your left hand.
And Jason Williams was testing everything he believed about basketball. The turnovers were real. Williams led the league in turnovers during parts of his Sacramento tenure. For every elbow pass that left crowds speechless, there was an attempt that sailed into the third row. By 2001, the Kings had made their decision. They traded Williams and Nick Anderson to the Vancouver Grizzlies for Mike Bibby and Brent Price. The Grizzlies relocated to Memphis weeks later. But here is what his critics missed. Is a risky pass actually risky if the constant threat of it forces the entire defense to overcommit? If defenders adjust their positioning to cover angles that don't exist in the playbook, does that create open shots? The box score never credits to Williams? Modern analysts call this gravity, the idea that a player's mere presence on the court, the constant possibility of what they might do, bends the defense around them. Williams had gravity in passing that no point guard had generated before him. Arco Arena was sold out every night. His highlights dominated SportsCenter before. SportsCenter had the vocabulary to describe what it was seeing. He was making basketball worth watching again, not through dominance, but through wonder. Chaos, it turns out, can be a strategy. Williams just arrived at that conclusion about a decade before the analytics community did. There is a pattern in basketball history that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Every generation bans something. Every generation eventually teaches that same thing to children. Kareem Skyhook, coaches called it a bad habit at UCLA. It became the most unstoppable move in NBA history. Dr. Reese Semper. Jay's finger roll, coaches called it playground basketball in the 1970s. Today, every player learns it before the free throw. Ginobili's Euro step, referees stopped games to debate whether it was a travel. Today, it is in every youth program on earth. The elbow pass may never become a fundamental drill. It requires a combination of touch and absurdity very few will ever possess. But what Williams normalized was far more important than a single move. He normalized the idea that passing angles are not fixed. That somewhere between every dribble and every shot, there are passes nobody has thought of yet. And that the player brave enough to try them might just change the game. The Spurs under Popovich built an entire offense around finding passing windows that didn't exist in traditional sets. Kerr's Warriors run an offense where every player makes reads that would have been called reckless in the 1990s. That is Jason Williams' DNA living inside modern coaching, whether those coaches acknowledge it or not. Look at the full arc of NBA basketball across 30 years, and something becomes undeniable. The league went from the Detroit Pistons winning championships by making the game as ugly as possible, to the most beautiful, creative, analytically sophisticated basketball the sport has ever produced. That didn't happen because of a memo from the front office. It happened because individuals kept pushing the boundary of what was possible, one impossible pass at a time. Rajon Rondo, one of the greatest pure passers in NBA history, embodied Williams' philosophy that the point guard's job isn't just to distribute, it's to control reality on the court, to make defenders believe the wrong thing at the right moment. Nikola Jokić, three-time MVP, operates on a foundation that players like Williams built decades before Jokić put on an NBA uniform, that any player, regardless of position, can be the most dangerous passer on the floor. Steve Nash took the permission Williams' generation established and built it into something systematic, something analytics could measure, something that changed how the entire league was constructed. The analytics revolution of the 2010s, the three-point explosion, pace and space, the death of the mid-range, was built on an expanded sense of possibility. The belief that basketball could be played in ways nobody had tried yet. That belief had to come from somewhere. It came in part from watching a young man from Bell, West Virginia use his elbow to throw a perfect pass, and dare the entire sport to tell him he was wrong. When Williams did it, commentators called it risky. Coaches called it undisciplined. The box score showed no assist. But watch the tape. The pass arrived perfectly. The crowd ignited. An arena full of NBA professionals rose to their feet for the first time in history. For a pass, novelty looked like selfishness. Creativity looked like carelessness. And genius, in the moment it appears, almost always looks insane. Today, when Luka Dončić throws a no-look in the conference finals, the broadcast calls it genius. The move didn't change. Our ability to recognize the intelligence behind it did. We're back in Oakland, February 2000, All-Star Weekend, and for the second time today, you watch the elbow pass. But this time, you see everything behind it. You see a kid from Bell, West Virginia, who spent years on outdoor courts learning a language the NBA told him didn't belong.
The Kings select Jason Williams from the University of Florida.
His flashy style has brought him plenty of attention this year.
You see Pete Maravich in 1967, planting a seed that would grow through magic and bird and arrive here in Oakland 30 years later. You see Rick Adelman on the sideline, arms crossed, and you understand now that his skepticism and Williams' genius were both necessary parts of the same story. You see the AND1 Mixtape, Allen Iverson, an entire culture of creativity pushing at the walls of a sport, still learning how much room it had. The NBA has always celebrated power, speed, dominance. These things win championships, and they always will. But every decade, a player comes along who reminds the sport that its greatest innovation isn't a training program or an analytics model. It's a human being standing at half court, looking at an angle nobody else has ever looked at, and deciding, in a fraction of a second, to trust it completely. Jason Williams didn't just change how passing was done, he changed what passing was allowed to be.
Basketball is a beautiful game if it's played the right way, to me. Bro.
Yeah.
Like, and it's so hard if we go out and play for me to get it done or for you to get it done for our team. Like if you use screens and you make the extra pass, it just makes the game so much easier. Like, how much easier is it for you instead of putting your shoulder down and crossing somebody up and banging into them and getting a layup as opposed to making one more pass, setting the back screen and going back door wide open.
Boom.
And every player who has ever thrown a pass that made someone gasp owes something to that. Somewhere right now on a blacktop in Bell, West Virginia, or a court in Lagos or a gym in Belgrade, there is a player trying something that has no name yet. Something coaches will call reckless tomorrow, teach to children in 20 years, and celebrate forever. That is basketball. and it never stops evolving. If this story hit different, like the video right now. One tap. That's it. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe, hit the bell. It's free.